iWatch, iWonder. Everybody wants me to talk about the iWatch. I've been wearing one for the past 2 to 3 weeks. The worst thing about wearing it, everyone wants you to talk about it. I'm not ready to talk about it, I keep saying. Read my newsletter. So, here's that newsletter. I know we're supposed to call it AppleWatch. I can read the little icon. It's the 27th letter of our Roman alphabet, the modern hieroglyph, the fruity symbol with a bite out of it. But I refuse. I refuse because I'm old school, or just old. I'm still living in the past in 2010 or 11. Remember the Think Different campaign back in the dark days of Apple's near demise? Remember all of those moving black and white photos of Einstein, Picasso, John Lennon, Nelson Mandela, Martha Graham, and more? The voiceover from Richard Dreyfuss that gave us goosebumps about being rebels, the crazy ones. That was back in '97 when Steve Jobs returned to the company he had created and then been ousted from. That was back when Apple looked like a prize fighter face down on the mat with the referee about to call the match. Back then, it took real courage to be an Apple fan. Kids teased you at school and work. They taunted, held hands, ring around a rosy style, danced and sang mean chants about how Windows ruled the world and the Mac would soon die. Ashes, ashes, the Mac falls down. We were just silly for believing in our cute little niche machines. And they would say niche as if it was slang for Hello Kitty or Fisher-Price. Apple computers? Macs are not real computers. Even before LOL was invented, people would actually laugh out loud and then say, "They're just cute little irrelevant artistic design centers." Back then, it took real courage to say, actually, I think they're the best personal computers in the world. Because you knew the crowd of people you were at happy hour with would choke on their drinks and spray you with alcohol as they burst out laughing. Yes, life was hard back in the early days when we faced lions in the arena. I watched millions recant and turn coat. They ran to Windows 95 machines while we, the faithful, wept for their lost souls. Emperor Bill Gates, the fallen one who rose to power, the traitor who had stolen the interface from our savior Steve, was starting to look pretty invincible. All because we had the temerity to think different. Not even differently, just different. So if I want to think different and call it an iWatch, I will. Why the backstory? Well, I want to establish that I was born, bred, and baptized in the Church of Apple. I have never, ever purchased a Windows machine, and I've used Macs exclusively since the dawn of the personal computing age. The only IBM machine I ever used was an IBM Selectrix in college when I was experimenting. It was an office flirtation. During the early 80s, before personal computers existed, it meant nothing. It was a typewriter. I was pure. I was clean. Holier than most, I upheld the faith and I preached the gospel of Mac to all who would listen. So, about this iWatch, wearable technology is the way of the future, right? I grew up on the Jetsons, and I've just been waiting for technology to catch up to my futuristic vision of the world. All of the reviewers said that by day 3 or so, they couldn't live without it. I was excited to see what it would do for my life. It was a new product line from Apple. What's not to get excited about? In spite of last month's newsletter, I wisely decided to play it small and just get the cheapest sport model with the larger screen, which set me back about $430. Oh, excuse me? Okay, I'm sorry, this just in. My wife is now insisting that I credit her with this decision, as I must. Even though it was ordered less than 3 minutes after it went on sale at midnight, I was informed I would have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for mine. When I tried to complain on a famous Apple fanboy website, I was banned. Didn't they know I was one of the faithful? One of the chosen? Wasn't it okay to question within the family? Apparently not. A few days later, the site reactivated my account, but I'd gotten the message: no questioning of the church allowed. Disciple or not, to question is to doubt, and doubt was heresy. So I waited, quietly shamed, for my iWatch to show up. It arrived after about 4 weeks, and I've been wearing it for 3 now. I hesitate to say this. I fear the possibility of flaming apples being thrown at my car as I drive around town, but I'm still waiting for the magic. I thought I would feel something, see the pattern behind the veil, but nothing has really happened yet. It hasn't transformed anything, and I'm feeling a little lost. Okay, here's what I like about it. The plastic sports band is oddly one of my favorite things about it. I was worried how plastic would feel on my wrist, but it's this smooth, brushed black plastic that I'm barely aware of, and it doesn't scratch my laptop when I type. The end of the band tucks inside the band in a seamless way that's really cool. I've worn a wristwatch all of my life, and it's the best watch band I've ever had. It seems to handle texting fairly well, and the electric thump on the top of your wrist makes them impossible to miss. The voice recognition works well enough to dictate replies. The display is beautiful, very clear, sharp, and high-res. The press to activate deeper features is kind of clever, and I imagine it will get more developed over time. What's odd to me is that the touch interface doesn't work well about half the time. Sometimes I'll get a call that I need to decline. I'll hit the red decline button 4, 5, 6, 7 times before it actually works. Surprising, since Apple has had access to this cutting-edge technology for a comparatively long time. Maybe, as a lot of reviewers say, the iWatch is, quote, the best smartwatch out there, but there just isn't much that a smartwatch can do yet? Oh, I get that its goal is to ultimately have us pulling our phones out less often. In 2015, having to pull out your smartphone is a unanimously agreed upon egregious burden that first worlders must suffer through. But the iWatch is still a very small screen and too tiny to really tap accurately. It's not going to keep us quieter indoors, since most of what you need to do with it as a communication device will be accessing voice recognition and dictation, almost all of which will not work unless you're in Bluetooth range of your iPhone. Battery life, that's good enough for a day, but you have to remove it every night and charge it at your bedside. For those of us who enjoyed the Fitbit sleep tracking, being able to know what time it was when you couldn't, or even setting up a gentle tapping alarm to wake you in the morning, the iWatch will not be there for you. Email is oddly hobbled too. For reasons unclear to me, you can only read and delete email, not reply to it. Is this Apple saying email is now the software equivalent of the floppy disk? Just because it's not hip to email, are we all supposed to now text and disturb our recipients with deep reflections like, "See you later"? I've tried a few phone calls on it, and aside from the old guy thrill of having Dick Tracy's favorite device finally realized, it actually gets tiring to hold your arm up perpendicular to the ground. Seriously. Okay, so maybe I should be doing a few more push-ups, but even if I do, there's the chance that I'll simply look foolish talking to my wrist and then sticking it into my ear to hear the response. While the speaker on the iWatch is definitely a dream come true for your average cricket, the sound is lacking for hominids. Once the cool factor wears off, I reckon we'll all be telling people, just a sec, I picked this up on my watch, I need to pull out my phone now. Probably the number one reason I wanted an iWatch was because of the transformative experience I had with my Fitbit, an exercise-oriented watch and fitness tracker. It tracked how many steps I took in a day, how many stairs I avoided, how long I was able to elude sustained exercise, as well as how unfitfully I slept at night. The iWatch he said while ducking flying tomatoes, is pretty disappointing in this regard. The rumors were that Apple gave up on a fully featured health kit that was supposed to monitor blood pressure because it was too buggy. Instead, I get little thumps on my wrists to stand more often, and I can send my pulsing heart icon to someone else wearing an iWatch. Now, how did Apple know that's exactly what I wanted to do every day? I feel healthier already. I actually wish they would have delayed the launch date until they'd worked this out rather than sell a hobbled first-generation product to a gullible fanboy like me. Can I be honest again? We're all family here, right? Remember when we got together to discuss Uncle Harry's obsession with the ponies? Remember how we all united for that intervention? Can we talk a little bit about ego here? One of the things that tweaked me the most about the iWatch was the hubris involved to bring to market an 18-karat gold version selling for as much as $17,000. Hey, I totally get Apple loves high-margin everything. Apple has the highest margins in the industry by a factor of 10. They're rumored to be around 40%. And perhaps that's why they're the largest American multinational on the Dow, bigger than Exxon. But to do so with a first-generation device that will only need to be replaced in a couple of years when they figure out some basic things like battery life, cutting the umbilical cord to the iPhone, and just how to make it more useful, there was just something kind of grotesque about catering to the top 1% who could throw away that kind of money for a toy. Apple hardware has always cost 2 to 3 times more than any other vendor, but it usually feels worth it. This just smacked of a sad kind of cynicism to me, suggesting that people will pay anything to wear the emperor's clothing. Want a new band for your iWatch? If you don't opt for the plastic sports band I like so much, a mere $50, all other bands start at $150 with a stainless steel link version selling for $450. For a watch band. $450. My true feelings? Well, since you asked, pride goeth before a fall. I expect the iWatch to sell okay until everyone who wanted one has bought one and then realizes it doesn't really do anything your iPhone doesn't already do. Perhaps we knew that going in, but we just expected that suddenly, like seeing the first iPod or iMac or iPhone, we go, hey, wow, I get it. This is really something. Please don't hate me for saying this. The iWatch is not really something. At least not for me. I keep thinking I'm missing something or the fog will clear and I'll see the leprechauns riding unicorns over a rainbow and I'll never understand how I lived without one. But that hasn't happened yet. There are no unicorns. I think Apple should have released the iWatch slightly above cost and gotten it on as many wrists as possible for this first generation product. I think if I'd paid around $250, my expectation might be different. But with $430 at stake, which is about what you'd pay for a new iPhone with a 2-year contract, I want more. I want at least some minor transformation. Now, all who know me know I am still a believer. I continue to think Apple products are the best out there, even if you have to get financing to own one. But I'd suggest saving your money on the iWatch for a few more generations and invest it in a new Mac or an iPhone in the meantime. If you can persuade me otherwise, I'd love to hear. Unicorn riding leprechauns aside, at Mix we're here for you and all of your Apple devices. Guinness, occasionally accepted in lieu of cash. All the best, Mick.